And in 3, 2. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the RGVSports.com podcast. I am your host. My name is John LaFollette, and I cover high school sports for the Monitor in McAllen, Texas, and for RGVSports.com for the world at large. And if you're listening to this on the podcast or watching on Periscope and or YouTube, you already know what this is. It's the RGV Week 11 podcast. This time we're talking about 6A teams. And joining me, as always, for the 6A show is the one, the only. He's the man who puts the Mac in Mac High. Woo! Greg Luca. We haven't used those in a long time.
Haven't you not?
We haven't used our little euphemisms.
I guess
you've been getting puns.
You've been getting creative for better or for worse. I think we should stick with the Mac and Mac High.
I do. What's going on, Mr. Luca?
Not much. Out here just getting stuff done. It's a busy time of the year for us with the volleyball playoffs in full swing and football season getting close to the playoff season, and then UTRGV basketball getting ready to start up. There's a lot going on.
So. High school basketball as well. Swimming and diving is going on. Cross country state finals.
Everything intersects. So
everything intersects right now.
It's a fun time too.
Yep, absolutely. And it's a busy time for football, especially given that this is the last week of the regular season. Everything comes down to this week, especially in your district where almost everyone except for McAllen Rowe is still fighting for a playoff spot, and McAllen Rowe, who's already got their stuff locked up. But normally we start with your district, 36A, because for whatever reason I like to be nice and have the guest go first, I suppose.
That's good manners.
At long last, we're going to invert things on the 6A show. Instead of starting with 36A, we're going to instead start with my district, 31-6A.
I think your district's earned it.
I think it has, at least this week, and I've reserved my selfishness card for the right week, and this is the week to do it. So I will turn over the interrogation duties over to you, and I will let you quiz away. What do you want to know about 31-6A?
Well, I would say there's probably no better place to start than the game of the week. So why don't you give me the breakdown of Weslaco High versus Weslaco East?
I mean, it's a pretty boring game. Not much to really talk about here. No, I kid. These are... it's Weslaco East versus Weslaco High. Weslaco is technically the home team, in this one. They will have home side there at Bobby Lackey Stadium on Friday. It's going to be packed. It's going to be a good game. What's at stake? Well, only the District 31-6A title. Whoever wins it gets it outright. I did not know this, Greg, but I was looking up who won this last year, and not who won. I was trying to see what the all-time series is, I should say, because Weslaco East has been around for about 15 years. I figured there'd be some history here. This is only going to be the fourth time these two teams have played, but just by judging by what happened last year, I know that there was some animosity between these sides. The teams did not meet after.
Absolutely.
They did not shake hands at midfield after this game last year, which Weslaco won. But even though in this short amount of time, it just seems like these two teams, there's already some tension there. It seems like there's like a century's worth of bad juju between these two teams.
Yeah.
Is that the way you see something?
That's definitely the way it showed last year. In every game, you'll see a little bit of chippiness, maybe some shoving, maybe a wide receiver and a cornerback get into it or whatever. But these two teams, all the way up and down the roster, just did not like each other, and they made it really clear from the get-go and all the way through the very end.
I'm excited to get there. I'm going to get there this game like 2 hours early before tip-off to get a good spot.
This is one where it really does pack up that place. People are into it.
Yeah.
It's a fun matchup.
Oh yeah, it's going to be a blast. And in terms of the storyline here, aside from the district championship, you got Weslaco East coming in on a 6-game win streak. Weslaco High coming in on a 5-game win streak. Neither of these teams has lost in district. In terms of playoff seeding, not much at stake for either team, just because both teams have the 1 and the number 1 seed locked up in Division 1 and Division 2 respectively. We'll get to that here in a second. But in terms of specifics, what do you want to know? What do you want to know here?
Well, when I think about this game, I think it comes down to both teams want to run the ball a pretty good amount, right? That's going to be kind of the story. And I think then you have to look at who's going to be better at stopping that. And I remember last year coming into this game, Weslaco East had the much better season. And I think they were favored by a lot of people, and I ended up picking Weslaco because of the defense. And when I look at the matchup on paper this year, I'm leaning that way again. So let's start with specifically one side of the ball. How do you measure Weslaco East's ability, district-leading offense, to move the ball against Weslaco's really strong defense?
Oh, it's going to be really tough. This is by far and away, you look at econ, and statistically they are the best defense here. But in terms of just, I'm trying to think of a word here, in terms of just, I think that Weslaco is the better defense. One, because they just beat Edinburgh Econ last week, 28-0, shut them out. I think, so let's just say Weslaco is the best defense here. It's going to be really tough because East really hasn't played a defense as good as Weslaco, Weslaco's. And here's the thing, for me, everything starts in the trenches, right? Because both teams want to run the ball, like you said.
Right.
And you've got Austin Sauceda kind of anchoring things there on the defensive line for Weslaco. He's got about 47 tackles through the 7 games that have been reported on their press box services page. But if you get through that defensive line, well, congratulations. Now you got to get past Jordan Nichols, who's a contender for Defensive Player of the Year. He has about 81 tackles, I believe. He had a huge fumble recovery for a touchdown against Donna. He's had key interceptions at key moments. He makes plays for them. And let's say you get past Jordan Nichols there. Well, congratulations. Now you got Desi Rodriguez, who leads the team in tackles.
Right.
They've got key players at every level on the defense. Weslaco High does. And it's going to be really interesting to see, because the times I've seen Weslaco East, their offensive line is so good at creating gaps and making space for those runners to get out there and run. And every time I've talked to Emilio Tamez after a big game, he'll rip off 136 yards and 2 touchdowns like it's nothing. He always credits the offensive line first and foremost. He says it doesn't matter who's running the ball. It could be me or anybody else on this team. They're going to get the same production too, because the holes are always there. That's what I think it's going to come down to first and foremost, is the line. And it's so hard. I've gone back and forth with this all week, and I know that throughout the season I've picked Desi Rodriguez, excuse me. Someone just made the comment here on the Periscope. There's Desi Rodriguez and Diego Rodriguez.
I was going to ask you, is the quarterback playing
Excuse me,
both
there's
ways?
Desi Rodriguez and Diego Rodriguez. They're brothers. I misspoke. Desi is the quarterback. Diego Rodriguez is the safety. He leads his team in tackles, so I apologize for that. Wrong name, same production, same point that I'm trying to make here. But I lost my train of thought. What was I saying? I've gone back and forth on this all week because, as I said at the beginning part of district play, I picked Weslaco to go undefeated in this district. I'm still picking them to do it, but if any team can upset Weslaco High, it's Weslaco East, because they have the speed, they have the athleticism, they have the athletes, and they've got the strength to do it. What else do you want to know?
Well, Weslaco's defensive line, you mentioned one of the highlights, and I know that last year when I talked to them and covered this team, they loved the whole 2 deep, essentially. They had 8 guys they felt really good about, but there were a lot of seniors there. So has the next class, the next wave come in and sort of lived up to that standard on the defensive front for them? Has that lived up to what they thought it might be able to be?
Yeah. Every time I've talked to Coach V or Coach Russ Moore, their defensive coordinator, he always has good things to say. He's like, these kids, I know coaches and kids say it all the time. They say next man up, but for them it's been a thing this year. They really haven't skipped a beat. This defense has been playing very well. It's not quite the level that it was last year. They've kind of taken a slight tick down, but they're still allowing fewer than 280 yards a game. So they'll take that any week they can get it. So in terms of drop off, no, I don't think they've really seen much.
Okay, so then let's flip it around. Weslaco High's running game against Weslaco East rush defense.
Oh man. Weslaco High's running game?
Yes.
Against East? Well, here's the thing with Weslaco High. I know you covered this district last year.
Mm-hmm.
They had their one guy who they counted on. What was his name again?
I always get it wrong. I think it's Eric Gonzalez.
I
right?
believe that was his name. I always want to say Matt Whitesides, but he was at Edinburgh
He's
North.
Edinburgh North, right.
They had their one guy. This year, they've got 4 guys that they by and large rely on. You got Brian Guetta, who leads the team with about 850 yards rushing.
He was there last year as well.
Yeah, and you got Jonathan Martinez, senior fullback, leads the team in rushing touchdowns with 9. Then you got Usael Gonzalez, and you got Major Free. Those 4 guys are their backs. And I've talked to Coach V about it. He's like, how does this depth kind of make this team better and kind of click? He's like, they've always got a fresh pair of legs in the game. They can just pace these runners to just be at the level they want them to be at, and that's kind of why, at least offensively for Weslaco High, I favor Weslaco High in this game offensively over East, just because with East, they've got Emilio Tamez and Cito Rojas, but outside of that, they don't really have the speed or the big playmaker that you kind of see on Weslaco, at least in terms of depth. Weslaco, they go 4 deep. Weslaco East, they go about 2 deep. And Cito Rojas, though, I know Emilio Tamez leads this team in rushing yards, and he leads this district in rushing yards, about 1,100, but Cito Rojas, he's a candidate for Offensive Player of the Year in my book, just because he does so much and he does everything so well. He's a multi-positional athlete. He scored as a rusher, a receiver, and as a returner. He leads this district in touchdowns with 19. No matter where he is on the field, he's always a threat to score, and he plays a little bit of defense too if the matchup's there as well. That guy's just a tremendous athlete. No matter where Burgett puts him in, you call his number, he's going to produce for you no matter what. So, but as I said, with Weslaco High, offensively they have a bit more depth at some of their key positions than Weslaco East does.
Because I know last year, Weslaco, I just pulled up the stats from last year's game. Weslaco ran for like 9 yards a carry. They had 349 yards on the ground. And when you talk about their offense and having 4 guys, I think that's ideally how they would want it to work, because they have that option-based game.
Yep.
So does Weslaco East do anything differently to try to take away the option game? Are they more prepared seeing it again this year?
I think they're older. I haven't had a chance to talk to either of these coaches yet. I've been busy covering, I've been getting ready for girls basketball coverage. I was out doing a feature for Edinburgh High, hashtag shameless plug.
Word.
So I will talk to the coaches tomorrow But in terms of the defense, the storyline for West LaCoe's coming to this year at the very beginning part of the year was how was the offense going to respond given the heavy turnover? They had only 2 full-time returning starters. Defensive side, they had about 8 guys coming back.
But they weren't that great on that defense last year. I mean, they
were middling defense.
Right.
They weren't terrible, but they were middling. They've improved. Last year, when I recall, they allowed about 360 yards a game, 350 yards a game.
Yeah, probably about that.
This year, they're down to about 310. So, I mean, they've improved. They as a team, they have 15 interceptions, which is great. But again, you're playing West LaCoe High, who doesn't throw the ball that much. I don't know how much that really helps you, but they had 8 fumble recoveries, just as many as West LaCoe High does. So they're able to generate turnovers at an equal rate that West LaCoe High has been able to. But props to West LaCoe East on that defensive side because they have improved. They're about 40 yards worse than West LaCoe High. And that might not sound like much. You break it down, that's 10 yards a quarter, but 10 yards might be the difference between a field goal range or not.
Right.
That and a field goal range that could win the game.
I mean, I know that East has the stronger passing attack this year. Your buddy LaFever
has
given them a little extra dimension, but I still think at the end of the day, it comes down to the run offenses versus the run defenses.
Oh yeah, certainly.
And that's why I lean West LaCoe. I think they're a little bit better in really all 4. If you look at them as 4 units, I like their rush defense better than West LaCoe East, and I like their rush offense better than West LaCoe East.
Right. It's gonna be. I still think it's gonna be close, but I'm glad you mentioned LaFever. He's the X factor in all this.
That could swing that.
He really could, and you look at his stats, and they don't really, they're not eye popping. He only has thrown for about 560 yards this season, but they pick and choose when they put him in. And as the season's gone along, they've given him some more chances. There was a game against, I believe it was PSG North. He received a good number of snaps in that game. He was out there for quite a bit of time. And early on in the season when he went in, you knew it was going to be a pass because that was the only time they brought him in. But, he spent a lot of that game against PSG North handing off to Emilio Tamez or Ciro Rojas. So I expect to see him a bit more in this game. How he's going to be used, it really all depends. We've seen him, throw for just 50 yards and a touchdown, or we've seen him against La Jolla High throw for 250 yards and a touchdown. He's the X factor, and if he can produce, if West LaCoe High comes out showing the run and Burgett wants to go wild card and start throwing deep bombs to Ciro Rojas, I wouldn't be surprised if that works. So yeah, I'm definitely going to be curious to see how Fever gets used in this game because that could make or break the game for either side here.
Right. So I'm leaning West LaCoe High just because of the run game on both sides. But is LaFever enough to swing you the other way? Where do you come down in terms of picking this game?
I'm picking La Jolla High. I'm picking West LaCoe High.
They would have no shot.
No, on neither team. I'm picking West LaCoe High. One, for the reasons you just stated. I think that they are the better run team, and I think they're the better defensive team in terms of stopping the run. But as I said, I can't count out West LaCoe East because they're tremendous in this game, and they've been tremendous all season as well. Part of it's just hubris as well because I picked West LaCoe to win defeated in district. I'm not going to pick it now. I'll pick against them now because during district they've crushed everyone, and it's like I know that. And you look at West LaCoe East, like they beat Edinburgh North, but they only beat them by 4. Meanwhile, Edinburgh High beats them by like almost 40. Mm-hmm. And so you kind of have some commonalities here in terms of opponents.
Right.
West LaCoe High is steamrolling through everyone. And now West LaCoe East has beat some people by some hefty margin as well. They beat PSG Memorial 50-12. They dropped 60 or more on Edinburgh High. They had a pretty easy time of dealing with PSG North despite having some fumbles. So I don't know. I don't feel comfortable picking a winner either way because I could see a scenario where either team wins. But if you put an imaginary gun to my head, I'm taking West LaCoe High. And I think the score I put in today's paper was 24-23. I think it's going to be close.
Yeah,
either way, I think it's going to be close. I don't think either of these teams are going to blow each other out. It was just 28-21 last year. It was just a touchdown. So
yeah.
I don't think that we're going to see a 50-point blowout either way here. So anything else going on about this game?
No, I want to move on to the other one, the play-in game.
Of
sorts. We've talked about it for a couple of weeks now, and it turned out to get to the point where we are now, which is Edinburgh North versus Edinburgh Economides. And I'll skip right to the end, and I'll say that I think that Edinburgh North is not going to be able to stop Economides on the ground, and that Economides is going to win this game because of that. So can you make me feel more confident in that, or can you talk me out of it?
Edinburgh North's defense played really well last week. And that was PSG Memorial. Well, here's the thing. PSG Memorial, yes, they're a one-dimensional offense in the fact that they like to throw the ball a lot, but still, their defense got 4 interceptions, 3 of which came from John Mendoza.
Economides might not throw the ball.
Well, here's the thing. I'm getting to that. So they had 4 interceptions. They forced 4 punts. They really did a good job of limiting that Memorial offense, and one reason for that was because they're healthy, and they were just playing better. Christian Espinosa said in that game, after the game, I had a chance to talk to him, and with North, their defense has been gashed a lot because guys have been out of position. Maybe just one guy is in a position to make a tackle and he totally misses it. Guys were swarming to the ball against that Memorial team. Whether it was a deep pass or a draw play or just some little 5-yard dink and dunk, there were a bunch of Cougars around the ball at all times. But you mentioned, trying to get Econ to pass the ball. That's what they're trying to do here. I talked to Coach Frank Franz, North's defensive coordinator, and he's like, we have to stop them against the run and get them to throw because we're more comfortable stopping teams who can throw as opposed to the run. And we've seen teams be able to do that against Edinburgh Econ. We've seen PSA North did it. They pretty much neutralized their run game somewhat and forced them to throw a lot. And Econ, as much as they want to throw, they want to add that wrinkle to their offense. They're not really that efficient at throwing it.
And now would not be the time to try to do it.
No, but
there's no reason, I don't think.
But it could happen. It could happen if because Edinburgh North, I don't know. I don't know. The same with Wesco High, where I really don't know who to pick. I don't know who to pick here.
Really?
I went with Edinburgh North.
Did you?
Yep. Part of it, again, it all just came down to hubris because.
So you think that
I would not be surprised if Econ gets the win. I feel like Econ, by and large, has been the more consistent team this season, on defense and on offense. But
so do you just believe in the progress that Edinburgh North has made on defense? Because I don't think what they've shown us to this point would lead us to believe they can stop the running.
Well, here's the thing. Okay, they got gashed by McAllen Memorial, surprise, everyone does. They got gashed by Weslaco High, surprise, they gashed everyone in this district. Same with Weslaco East, and same with Ed Cal-Chelsea. They put up big plays on people all year long.
But what about with
Econ,
even like PSA North?
Huh?
PSA North dropped 40 on them too.
And PSA North is a really good offense. Up until this week, they were the number one offense in this district. And that was the first game they played after George Olivares quit. I mean, that was and even then, that game was a bit closer than what the box score would indicate because the fourth quarter, I think it was the third quarter, PSA North scored like 3 touchdowns or whatever. But I'm just saying, put some things in context here. Yeah, North's defense hasn't played that well, but a lot of teams give up the same kind of plays against the teams that I just listed. But I lost my train of thought. But with Econ, here's what I was going to say. With Econ offensively, they need their defense to be so good because their offense doesn't have that go-to playmaker that can get you a big 50-yard run or a big 40-yard run or a 50-yard touchdown pass. They don't really have that guy that can take the top off that defense and keep guys honest. Every time, the one time I saw Econ play, every drive was, kill clock, 12 plays, 5 minutes off the clock. And with Edinburgh North, I feel like they've got a playmaker now in Adrian Rivera and some of those receivers like Ubaldo Pequeno who can maybe do some things against that defense. I think it's going to be close. I'm just saying that it's not quite as simple or simplistic as you're trying to make it. There could be a case could be made for either of these teams to win.
Taking it one side at a time, how many points do you think Edinburgh North can hold Economides to?
That's a good question. Less than 30.
So then how is...
PSA North has one of the worst offenses in this district, and they held them to 15. Now, granted, Econ fumbled the ball a lot in that game. They were unforced turnovers, but I've seen defenses worse than North do pretty well against this team.
Okay, if we look at the district stats that we have right now, the only teams that are even close to how bad Edinburgh North has been against the run are PSA Memorial and Edinburgh High. And against PSA Memorial and Edinburgh High, Economides put up 40 points against Edinburgh High and 32 against PSA Memorial. So now we're saying that Edinburgh North's offense has to get into potentially a shootout against the top-ranked defense in this district. Do you think that they can keep up with Edinburgh North's offense, can keep up with that level of production if they can put up a similar number to what those other teams did?
But that's the thing. I don't think Econ gets to 30 points in this one.
Still,
I think it's going to be close. It's going to be a sloppy game.
Still, I don't know if Edinburgh North gets to 20.
I think they can. I think Econ's defense is legit. It's not. A lot of it isn't them screwing with their own numbers because Weslaco East and Weslaco High have dropped 50 plus on a bunch of teams in this district, and they couldn't get past 28 against this Econ defense.
Right.
So, but I'm not. It's not North's offense that concerns me because North's offense is pretty balanced and they can move the ball. Econ's offense, it's not that great. It's not that great.
I don't know. I think against this North run defense that they'll be able to put up something. But give me a little bit of the other side of the matchup. How does Economy's defense match up with North's offense, which is going to give them more passing than they'll see a lot of the time?
It'll give them more passing, and the thing with you mentioned that PSG Memorial game. They did a really good job of flustering Mike Gonzalez, getting to the quarterback, and if not sacking him, making him uncomfortable in the pocket. I rarely have I seen Christian Espinosa unfazed. I've seen Edinburgh North play 3 times, and that kid's such a smart player. He has 6 interceptions on the season. 3 of them came in one game against Ed Couch in the rain when they were already down by 20 at halftime. So, in terms of passing the ball, Christian Espinosa is really smart. He's not going to hurt him. He's not going to hurt himself or the team. If it's not there, he either throws it out of bounds or he tries to run for 5 or 6 yards and pick up some yards that are there that the defense is giving him. So they really don't shoot themselves in the foot that much. They really don't fumble the ball. Edinburgh North doesn't. I like their offense. I really like their offense. And again, in terms of the defense, gosh, Econ's defense is really good. And again, like I've said, a case can be made for both teams to win. Most of this just comes down to hubris for me because I picked Edinburgh North to make the playoffs at the beginning of the season. I'm giving them a huge benefit of the doubt here, but I would not be surprised if Econ wins at all.
What is the score you have?
I have it 24-21 Edinburgh North.
I would have Economy D's like 32-16.
Really?
I really think they're going to have a good time in this one.
Well, you picked Econ to beat PSG North. And Econ's offense went out there and wet the bed with 3 turnovers in the red zone.
Well, sometimes those things will happen. you know these districts.
I respectfully disagree, but here's with both these games you just talked about. We're going on 20 minutes now on 2 games. With both these games,
they're big ones, man.
They are big ones. They are big ones. But with both of these games, a case can be made for any 4 of those teams to win in any scenario.
Right, and that's why we got to talk about it for 20 minutes.
That's true. That's true. It should be noted in 31-6A, there is a game tonight, i.e. Thursday.
I was just going to say, it's kind of nothing on the line.
Nothing really is on the line except for pride. PSG North is playing Edinburgh High at Cat Stadium. Kickoff is at 7 o'clock. I'm already in basketball mode. Right. Kickoff is at 7 o'clock. Not much at the line for Edinburgh Edinburgh High. They're 1-7 or 1-8, a loss.
Whatever.
They're out of the playoffs.
In the right spot.
PSG North, they're already locked in. They are the 2nd seed in Division 2 in 31-6A. They are already set to play San Benito. They're going to go to Bobby Morrow Stadium in San Benito next week and play the Greyhounds in the Bi-District round 7:30 November 13th.
This game seems like a lock of the week candidate, but what did you go with?
For me, I went with Los Fresnos.
Who are they playing?
They're playing Brownsville Hannah.
Okay, Hannah's not terrible, but yeah, Los Fresnos.
Hannah's only won 1 game in this district, so in terms of district,
yeah, maybe they're worse than.
So I'm taking Los Fresnos. I haven't picked them all year. Seems like it's and I'm not down on Hannah. I picked Hannah lock of the week 2. So,
yeah.
But I just think this is Los Fresnos is really good, and Hannah's out of the playoffs. Not much to play for here. So
makes sense to me.
So 31-6A. It took 22 minutes, but we got through it.
Yeah, we did.
We did. Real quick, if you want to, for those of you listening on Periscope now or on the podcast later, let us know who you think gets in the playoffs here. Is it Econ? Is it Edinburgh North?
We had somebody pick Weslaco East.
Or is it Weslaco East versus Weslaco High? We want to know what you think. Let us know it. It's RGV Week 11. Excuse me. Blech, can't talk. Hashtag RGV Week 11. Let us know who you think is going to win. Not just these games, but other games we're going to talk about. 6A, 5A, 4A, whatever. With that, can I usurp my?
Take it on back.
Let me usurp my. Let me just.
I will send it that way.
All right, I've got it. Let me just Odell Beckham it right now. Okay. All right. So let me put my co-host cap back on.
There you go.
Greg Luca, 36A.
Oh, thanks for having me, John.
That's aside from McAllen Memorial. They play on Thursday, do they not?
They play Friday.
They play Friday. Doesn't matter who they play because win or lose, their season's pretty much set.
You want Trevor Spates watch quick?
Yeah, Trevor Spates watch. What's going on with Trevor Spates? Where's he staying at in terms of numbers and where he stands in the state and the valley?
He is averaging 278.9 yards and 4.6 touchdowns per game after a 7-touchdown game last week. That'll bump your average up a little bit. And so at 12 games, his current pace would be 3,347 yards and 55 touchdowns. As a reminder, the Valley single-season rushing record is 3,306. So he's really close to that one in a 12-game season. Again, if they go farther in the playoffs, he should get it comfortably. But in a 12-game season, he would beat it by just 41 yards at his current pace. Touchdowns one should be a little bit easier. On pace for 55 touchdowns when the single-season record is 48. So in a pretty good spot there. Yeah, I think that's going to be pretty easy for him. On the season already, he's got. Let me pull that up real quick. He's already got 41.
If we had an RGV high school fantasy football league, like if you just pick Trevor Spates, you win everything.
Probably, yeah.
Like it wouldn't be like
there'd be the bye week. There'd have to be some sort of like his points count for half rule or something.
No,
you'd have to tone it down.
No.
Fairness.
Like if you draft Spates, you can only start one running back.
Right. Okay, I like that.
On that weekly basis.
And then in terms of the career, last one to keep an eye on is 107 career touchdowns that he has, and the Valley career record is 112. So that's probably going to fall too.
Probably.
The question is this week or playoffs. I don't think he's going to play long enough to get that many touchdowns in a meaningless game against Mission High.
True. With you mentioned Mac High Palmview. What do you see in that one?
Well, this is a game that seemed like it would matter at first glance, but really I think both teams are in a pretty good spot regardless. Palmview with a loss, unless some weird stuff happens, is still going to be in position to get in on tiebreakers. And for McAllen High, what they really want to do is secure a home field advantage because that's a thing now. The way the new system is going to work with the UIL, if you are the team that has the better seed, then you will host the number 2 seed.
Right, and that is 6A only.
Yes.
That's only for Class 6A teams, you should note. Yeah, the higher seed automatically gets home field advantage in that first game.
So they want to secure that. One thing worth talking about for them is that Josh McGowan got a Division I offer last week to play football at Stephen F. Austin, so congrats to him.
Props to him.
And you never know, because it's kind of late in the process, but one thing that Coach Kevin Brewer was saying was that a lot of schools, before they offer a kid, they want to say, well, who else is offering it? So when one comes, then it leads to more, potentially. So he's been in talks with a couple other schools, and we'll see if having an offer officially on the table could lead to more for them.
Nonetheless, props to him getting some
that's
some
plenty good right there.
So.
He might run track at the next level, too. He's really good at that. You'll have fun with that.
Is he going to do track for Mac High in the spring?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm excited. I'm excited to watch him. I haven't had a chance to talk to him or see him. He's
a really nice guy. Really
cool.
Really,
I look forward to it then. The game you are going to cover, and this speaking of you mentioned with this Mac High Palmview game that at the beginning of the season it looked like it was maybe going to mean something more than it is.
Right.
At the early part of the year, we pretty much wrote off Juarez Lincoln as just a district bottom feeder, but now they're in a position. You're going to be at this game, winner take all against La Jolla High for what is going to be the fourth and final playoff spot here.
I think the more surprising thing is that La Jolla High is in a position to need this game. It comes down to losing to Rowe last week, which is not something that any of us predicted, and I think that we remember like 3 weeks ago we were talking about how it's like, La Jolla is probably going to be the number 2 seed,
yeah,
because they beat
Mac High and Palmview,
right? And it was like, okay, well this team's in a really good spot, and then so let's just lose to everybody else.
It was just one loss to Rowe. They lost to Mission as well,
right?
So yeah, they're right back in the boat.
So suddenly, everybody they both need this game to have. I mean, essentially, it's a win-and-you're-in situation. There's a bunch of weird things that could happen, but again,
if a virgin riding a shooting star carries the second missing golden amulet, then McAllen Memorial will fall to the 4 seed, as foretold by the prophets. No, that's pretty much like reading some of these playoff scenarios in this district. That's pretty much the way this all reads.
Right,
so.
right. The key thing that, quite frankly, made it annoying about having to figure it out is that it hinges on Mission beating McAllen Memorial, which is just not going to happen. I think McAllen Memorial can play a lot of their second-string guys, and they would still be all right in this game, just because they have such a strong system and they're so far ahead of the pack right now. But we talk about that every week. We're talking about Juarez Lincoln and La Jolla High.
Yep. Who, in your little capsule that comes out today, you do a wonderful job of selling this game, aside from the playoff implications, of just watchability. You said both of these teams have the worst offense in the district, quote, by a healthy margin.
Yeah. Well, okay, so Juarez Lincoln averages 211.9 yards per game. And La Jolla High averages 230.9 yards per game. So that's not a lot.
No, it's not a lot. To put that in perspective, Edinburgh High averages about 193 yards a game.
Wow, and that's a team that's not in the playoff discussion.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
yep.
So, and their defenses have been in the middle of the pack here, both about even. So really, it seems like 2 evenly matched teams just on paper, just looking at the ranks. And that's why I find myself having no idea where to go with this thing. I mean, La Jolla High, the story for them all season has been how banged up they are. They have lost their starting running back. They've lost their starting quarterback for a period, and then Irving Garcia, the sophomore, ended up just kind of taking over. Justin Leanos was the running back, and he went down with an ACL, and he had a really good season last year and was on pace to rank among the district leaders this year. And Brandon Ramos is the guy who stepped in for him, but he's had his own injuries. Then for the La Jolla Juarez Lincoln side, they are still just sort of going week to week with this, starting a bunch of sophomores on each side because they just don't have a ton of kids in the program, and they've struggled to generate interest and really get something going there. And their quarterback, Obed Fernandez, has had a pretty good season, but we talked about the game last week against Mission High that I didn't feel like they really deserved to win that one. They were playing against a Mission High team that was kind of banged up. They were missing 2 of their key defensive starters. And even then, they still got shut down except for a couple of big plays here and there. So, like I said then, I don't think either of these teams is particularly good. And whoever gets in is going to lose in the first round.
Do you know who they end up playing?
Well, like we talked about, the Laredo picture is really jumbled because they have a pretty much logjam all the way top to bottom in their standings as well. So I have not determined that. And it's not that I haven't figured it out. It's just that we don't know yet. So we'll see how it shakes out. But whichever team is in is going to be in Division I too. So they're not getting any breaks that way either because they're the bigger enrollments of the school. So they're going to have a tough draw regardless. But I think it's still worth it to just focus on what a playoff appearance would mean for these schools. For Horace Lincoln, it would be the first one. And for La Jolla High, it would be their second in a row. They also managed to get in last year in a kind of similar situation where I think maybe last year's team was probably better than this year's team, but I think that they really just kind of had to scratch and claw their way in there and kind of earn a spot that was up for grabs just based on how the bottom half of the district played out with none of the teams really stepping forward or being that strong overall.
Who's going to win?
I went with Juarez Lincoln, I think. Because
I picked them too.
I'm worried that
partly I don't cover this district at all, obviously, but I went with it just for the storyline. Like I just think where this team was during 2 days versus where they are now, I just think it'd make a great story to see this team get a playoff appearance for sure.
Here's the thing: I got to catch up with the Coach Espinoza over at La Jolla High tomorrow because I went and did the feature on them during their bye week, which was before the Row game. And I came away thinking, they've been banged up, but they've kind of grinded out these wins, and they did what they had to do to beat McAllen High and Palmview. And yeah, they sort of laid an egg against Mission, but okay, they were overconfident in that game and just kind of worn down from the injuries piling up week to week.
Right.
And so you have a week off, and you come back, and you're going to be healthier, and you're going to be rested, and you have 2 weeks to prepare for Row, which is good because they do different things than any other team in the district because they're the only ones that pass.
Right, and at that point, Row has a lame duck coach because word comes out that their coach has been forced to resign.
So then they lose to Row with all of that in their favor, and it's like, so then what do I think of this team versus a Juarez Lincoln team that, with so many young starters, is presumably getting better as the year goes on and has won their last 2 games. So I guess you have to ride the hot hand insofar as you can consider either of these teams a hot hand at this point.
Yeah, especially with those offensive numbers you just said. What's the score?
Let me see. I don't want to get it wrong because I already made the prediction officially in the newspaper. 22-18.
Okay.
22-18.
That's some high scoring for teams that can't average. I think combined.
Well, the defenses aren't great either, John.
I think these teams combined average like how much Weslaco does in one game. Weslaco East, averages in one game on offense. So.
They have almost half of McAllen Memorial's average. Actually, that's not even
No,
true.
Seriously, no. Whoever does win, they deserve it because
to
both sides have been through so much this season. Like I said, I just picked Juarez Lincoln just because the story would be a lot. It'd give me the warm and fuzzies just knowing where that team was and versus where they would be.
Yeah, it's like you always say. I'm razzing on them a little bit, but these kids work just as hard as anybody else, especially given that for Juarez Lincoln specifically this year and for La Jolla having to build the program the last couple of years, they haven't had the roster knowledge, and these kids, a lot of them will play both ways and with things like that.
You mentioned whoever wins, likely has a tough time in the playoffs. Let's segue to the playoffs now. Last time we talked about the playoffs regarding this district, everything in the Laredo 29-6A was all messed up. So after this last week, have they kind of figured things out on the Laredo side? How are just things shaping up?
No,
do we have a clearer picture?
We last talked Saturday, and they haven't played any games since then.
Oh, okay, okay, yeah. Never mind.
They're still kind of screwy over there.
Okay, all right. So we'll have a more defined picture, hopefully, for the recap podcast.
Yeah, I think I'll be able to get this figured out by then.
Okay.
It'll be interesting to see, but spoiler alert, I'm only going to pick McAllen Memorial, pretty much regardless of how it plays out.
Okay.
I don't think any of these teams have shown much that they can beat, that those schools... well, I've seen Laredo United in person this year, and they looked really strong. And to see that all the other teams are playing at about that level and are playing close games with them tells me that they're a notch above the non-McAllen Memorial teams here, who have all been trading wins all season.
Segueing to 32-6A, the only thing that's set in terms of... They still have to figure out a district champion. San Benito, Harlingen, and Los Fresnos are all, 6-1? Something like that? Let me check. No, they're all 5-1, excuse me. All 3 of those teams are 5-1. I'm not sure what the tiebreakers are in that circumstance there. But there is Brownsville Veterans versus Harlingen South. They're not playing each other, I should say. But those 2 teams can get the fourth and final spot. If Brownsville wins, they're in. If Brownsville loses, they play Lopez. If Brownsville loses to Lopez and Harlingen South beats Harlingen High, Harlingen South gets in. So Brownsville Vets is in control of their own destiny. They win, they're in regardless of what happens with Harlingen South.
The Harlingen High versus somebody matchup is already set. Is that right? Which
Not-
is the
it's-
matchup that's already set?
The matchup that's already set, it's going to be PSU North and San Benito.
Okay.
Now the rest of the
So
match.
Los Fresnos and Harlingen High both need to win this week to potentially secure a better standing.
Right. But here's the thing: Los Fresnos is going to play Brownsville Hanna, who they probably beat. Harlingen High has played Harlingen South, a team that they probably beat. Brownsville Vets is playing Lopez, which we already said. That's a team they probably beat. I believe San Benito is playing Rivera. Yeah, they're playing Rivera. Rivera hasn't won a game all season. That's a game San Benito probably gets. So
That's Greg's lock of the week. There you go.
The seedings are probably there you go. The segue for lock of the week: San Benito over Brownsville Rivera. But so if things play out the way we think they will, the seedings will go as follows. You're going to have Weslaco High hosting Los Fresnos at Bobby Lackey Stadium at some point, and you're going to have the winner of Econ versus Edinburgh North playing Harlingen High at Harlingen.
Oh, by district lock of the week.
And that's Division 1. That's at the Division 1 level. Division 2 level, the 1 seed is Weslaco East. They will likely play Brownsville Vets, who plays Lopez. Again, if Brownsville Vets beats Lopez, they're in. Even if they lose, I think they're still in because they own the tiebreaker over Harlingen South. That's assuming Harlingen South beats Harlingen High, which they probably won't. So expect on Weslaco East playing Brownsville Vets at Weslaco there at Bobby Lackey Stadium, because again, this is 6A, better seed automatically gets home field advantage there in that first game.
That's the way it should be. I like that.
And then you got PSU North going to San Benito. That game's already set in stone next Friday, 7:30 at Bobby Morrow Stadium there in San Benito.
Okay,
So that's the way things are all shaping up in that district.
I guess the reason that I wanted to think about, does Harlingen High have something to play for, comes down to the who makes the playoffs with that fourth spot. Because
Well, I mean, they're playing for a district championship
Right.
outright. All
So-
three of those teams are Los Fresnos, San Benito, and Harlingen.
So absolutely, they're going to be giving Harlingen South a really tough time, whereas Brownsville Vets going against Lopez is going to get the win, and I would think then that Brownsville Vets is a huge favorite to take away the fourth spot. At this
Right.
point.
And I imagine, I forgot, how tiebreakers go for districts championships for football. I forgot
They
a
don't.
lot. They don't, there's no tiebreaker. They all just share it.
Right. They need to tie break for seeding, but then in terms of district championship.
They all share, which I think is fitting because all three of these teams have wins over each other. Los Fresnos has one over San Benito, Harlingen has over
Right, it's good that you get to divide them into groups of two and then break the ties, or else you
Yeah.
couldn't do head-to-head.
Yep, that's true.
They could look at positive points. Or
Yeah,
whatever.
but again, I'm glad we talked about the playoffs then for that because a bit more of a clear idea of who's going to play who instead of 29 and 36A over here who can't figure anything out. So,
Right.
anything else we want to mention? We talked about some of the 4A schools yesterday. Anything else we want to talk about?
No, I think we went long on those games, but we still had a tidy show.
Yeah, it's important. Those games are important. We got a lot of important games to talk about for sure. And even 5A, important games over there too. We got Ed Couch and Donna. Donna's playing for an outright district title. Vela plays Mission Vets on Thursday / tonight. That's for an outright district title for Vela and Mission Vets. They can win a share of it. So
And don't forget, it is an important Friday for Valley Volleyball as well.
yeah,
Don't forget about those people.
yeah.
I would
How many Valley teams are still left?
personally- Quite a bit, actually.
Okay.
So Brownsville Vets is playing Thursday, and then what's exciting is there's a couple of Valley versus Valley matchups on Friday. McAllen Memorial's at Edinburgh North, and McAllen Row is at Edinburgh High,
Okay.
which I'm really excited to see how those matches play out, because when you do the top 10 all year, you sort of have to just go by, how the non-district tournaments and stuff played out, and just sort of your overall eye test through the rank the teams cross district. But now we get two of the best in 31-6A against two of the best in 36A, right here in the second round. So that'll be exciting to see how that plays out. But I'll get you a quick count here: 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 5A and 6A teams
Okay.
are still in it.
Cool.
So yeah, it could be a couple more weeks. I would think that Mission Vets has a run in them. I would think that whichever teams win those two matchups we just talked about has a run in them.
I'd want to see, just as just someone who just vaguely keeps up on this stuff, I want to see McAllen Memorial play Edinburgh North.
Yeah.
That seems like a really good game.
Yeah, a lot of good players in that one. And then I don't want to overlook Los Fresnos. They probably are going to last a good while in this postseason thing, too. They've had a great year. So those are the teams to keep an eye on. I think we'll see a lot of the other ones drop off this week.
Also, should be noted that cross-country state meet, when's that? That's Friday,
That
isn't
is
it?
Friday?
Or is it Saturday?
Yeah, I think it's Friday.
Yeah, that's in Round Rock. That's this weekend either way. There's a lot of Valley athletes up there representing the area. So
Mario did a feature today on Victor Pedraza.
yeah, that dude's cool.
Check that
no
out.
one in the Valley makes distance running look as swag-tastic as Victor Pedraza does for PHA Southwest.
The part he just like runs home from work and then he runs to work and then
he runs
to
everywhere.
School that's how
dude,
you become great.
That dude
right?
is so cool. And
Look at him. I didn't even watch this video, but he's got his collar popped.
And he's just got the look down. Like when he runs, like he does his hair up in a mohawk, and like it goes from like his forehead all the way back to like the bottom of his neck. And he always runs with like these big old huge sunglasses on. You can see him from a mile away. That dude,
jacket is swag.
That dude gets after it, man. I love watching that kid run. And also Kristen Martinez, Fred Calgelsa. We also got Beth Ramos and Tristan Pena of Edinburgh North, and we got Valerie Tobias at Edinburgh Idea. Like there's a ton of Valley athletes out there going to be running their butts off there at Round Rock. Hope some of them come bring home a gold, and if those who don't, hope they run well nonetheless.
So what a weekend for Valley. You even got a swim meet.
Got a swim meet at Weslaco, and then next week we start girls basketball on Tuesday.
The games actually start Tuesday?
Games start Tuesday.
You covering a game Tuesday?
I hope to.
No, you're not.
I hope to.
You're going to be at a volleyball match.
Nope.
Spoiler alert.
Nope. I hope to cover girls basketball. I'm looking at McAllen Memorial versus Sheridan High. That's going to be fun. A lot of good players in that one. So.
That was how the... No, I'm sorry. I'm thinking of something else. I was going to say that's how the football season started.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I was going to say it's how the volleyball season started, but that was McAllen Memorial Mission Vets. And I guess those guys are buddies.
Yeah, they're all buddies, and you're my buddy.
Wow.
Thanks for being my buddy on the.
Man.
Thanks for being my buddy on the 6-Day
It's
podcast.
been a long ride, and we've made it.
We've made it. We're almost to the playoffs. This time we do this show next week. We're talking about the postseason.
RGV Week 12, right?
RGV Week 12. All right,
Maybe
folks.
we'll just do RGV playoffs.
That brings an end to this show. We appreciate it as always. Thanks for checking us out on the podcast or on the Periscope or on the YouTube. You can find us at RGVSports.com. On Facebook, it's RGVSports.com. On Twitter, it's at RGVSports. You can find this podcast and all other kinds of audio regarding football and other sports on the Apple iTunes Store, I should say. Search RGVSports.com. If you want to follow me personally on Twitter, I'm at John Fillet. Follow along for live updates on Friday night from the big game, Weslaco East, Weslaco High. I'll be there. And if you want to know if Juarez Lincoln and La Jolla High make history,
At Greg Luca.
At Greg Luca. And for the Trevor Spates beat. And for volleyball playoff updates.
And for volleyball. We're going to keep most of the volleyball playoff updates on RGV Sports.
All right.
So keep it at RGV Sports
All right.
for all the scores as they come in on Friday and
All
Saturday.
right. Fair enough. Well, until then, folks, stay safe. Enjoy the games you go to. Hope your team wins, unless they're not my teams. JK. I don't have any teams.
JK.
I don't have any teams down here. Anyways, and with that, we'll be back on Saturday. Recap and get ready for the postseason.
Football emoji.
Take care. Football emoji.
My favorite thing.
Any questions? Be happy to take some.
Everybody went to sleep. It's too late now.